Hey everyone, hope you are doing well. It's the morning where I am, so good morning. If you are in a hurry, if you're rushing to get off to work, feel free to join us later, but just know the nutshell version is everything is going well, everything's on schedule. I just have a portrait to unveil and something even better to unveil too for you to have a look at, so let's take a look. This is the final portrait, guys. It's crazy. We had 22 major arcana, 22 historical swordswomen. Every one has been so fascinating and so interesting and so crazy. It's almost kind of hard to compare. It's like, how do you compare Nefertiti, who had the sword as symbol, as ruler, on an Egyptian hieroglyph like thousands of years ago? How do you compare that to Harriet Tubman or kind of modern 20th century Olympian fencer or Joan of Arc? Or they've all been fascinating and interesting in their own ways. The culture, the history, the techniques they would have used, their own struggles. I don't know. You supported the project. You found it fascinating too, I guess. It's just been a wild ride. So we had our last one, and I have had fun looking through history and trying to decide who to include, who not to include, what's kind of interesting and fair and balanced. Excuse me, I'm still waking up here. And one thing I didn't want to do is just to have the last few be kind of throwaway or like unhurriedly decided. I wanted the very last portrait to be just as interesting and worthy and good of a choice as the first that you would think of, right? That we immediately think of. So let's see here. All right, ready for this? Our last portrait is the major arcana is Judgment, but the actual swordswoman is Ella Hatton. I hope that focus is there. Let me see if I can get that to focus. Let's see. I don't know if it will on the face. You have to forgive my setup today. I'm so sorry because someone borrowed my tripod and I have not yet gotten it back. So I've kind of got this rigged on sitting on some books and cards and everything. Oh, it's a shame. I don't think that's gonna focus. Come on now. That might be as best as we can do. Okay, so beautiful, so rich. Ella Hatton. Where to start? Judgment. She competed in front of judges. This was 1800s, and she would challenge people, whoever wanted to come face her, and she would get a word of a challenge. She lived kind of down by Mexico. She lived other places too at one point, but she would ride up from Mexico on her horse, Muchacho, and she would do these tournaments. And sometimes they were on foot, sometimes they were mounted. And one of her articles say that she wore brass armor. Now, in this particular picture of her, I'm not sure if that particular set of armor was brass, but there's another one, a cuirass, that I know for sure was brass, what they're talking about. And that's an interesting thing because you don't necessarily pick that up by looking at the black and white, right? So I guess good example of like doing some research to try and make sure you nail it. And then she would go into these tournaments and she would be paid $500, $1,000 in 1800s money. Okay, so almost like a Conor McGregor thing where, she's doing these huge purse prize fights. And she would face male commanders in the army, fencing instructors, and she would win. And sometimes, with female athletes, like remember, I think Venus Williams faced that guy one time and she lost or whatever. Sometimes, you win, sometimes you lose. This apparently was not a staged thing. This also apparently was not one of those things where she lost. There might have been one or two losses, but dozens and dozens and dozens of people she was able to beat. These guys who were fencing instructors, like I said, gymnasium instructors, commanders who just got back from the military service, like fighting Indians and stuff, because this is America. So she was extremely capable, and some men were gracious losers, and they'd be interviewed later, and they'd be like, she's kudos to her. She's the fastest swordswoman, fastest fencer I've ever faced. Other dudes were apparently not gracious losers, and there was like at least one guy who charged the ref and was like all mad and probably hacked that he was losing to a girl. But she would challenge all these men, and she would actually win. Now, why? Well, for one thing, she actually knew fencing. According to one newspaper, I've got like dozens and dozens of newspaper articles about her, and I really, there's so much, it's kind of crazy. But according to one newspaper article, she started fencing when she was a kid, maybe taught by her mother. But when she was younger, a teen, she met this very, very kind of famous in that era fencing instructor. And he supposedly said, I'm going to make you the freaking greatest swordswoman ever. And in fact, she eventually was nicknamed the Queen of Swords. Cool name, right? And she was also nicknamed Jaguarina. I keep wanting to say Jaguarina, but she was half Spanish. She had a Spanish mother, and then she had a dad who died in the Civil War, actually. He died on the Union side of the Civil War. So when she was younger, maybe like a late, I have to go back and check those dates on when that was. I can't remember how young she would have been when he died, but she was young. So anyways, she actually knew fencing, and she also had the weight. She was 197 at her peak. There's a newspaper article I found that had her measurements, everything. Her wrist measurements, her bicep measurements, her like chest measurements. What else? Her waist measurements. And it says, or at least one of the newspaper articles says, yeah, she's 197. So the weight advantage is a real thing, obviously, in competition and in sports. And so, you might imagine this like frail Victorian woman going up against a 110-pound Victorian woman going up against like a 150-pound Victorian man, like whatever the average weight was back then. But no, she was a stout lady and very athletic. She would run. She would go with her dog. She had 2 dogs, which she really loved, apparently. She had a Great Dane and some other, I can't remember if it was a Mastiff or what. And in fact, one of the newspaper articles I found was her dog had puppies, and she had an advertisement. She's like, come get a puppy. You'll never find a more noble and regal creature. She really loved her animals, but she would go running with her animals, and she would build up her wind. It's like a Victorian, so to build up her wind, but it's her like cardiovascular endurance and stuff. So she trained. She would run for hours and like up the hills and stuff, and then she would train. She would ride for hours, like kind of getting ready for her bouts. And she would work relentlessly with her horses, like for the mounted stuff, to do mounted fencing. She would like be able to, tell the horse with her knees, like whether or not to back up or scoot this way or that. And I can imagine some guy, perhaps. Now, she fought skilled and trained guys, that's for sure. But I can also imagine the average dude thinking to himself, oh, yeah, I got this. A fencing match with a woman. I'm going to phone this in. And you can imagine him kind of practicing for 30 minutes, goofing off with the guys, talking, practicing for another 20 minutes, phoning it in. But going up against someone who's been doing all this running and who actually has the weight and has the technique, because she did, and can actually tell her horse in a moment's notice, she slaughtered a lot of these dudes. And again, it wasn't like a pro wrestling setting where everything was kind of fixed and people agreed to win or lose. I mean, she was, by all accounts, She'd go out in front of these judges and they would score points and she would win. In fact, she is judgment, right? I don't know if you can see that really well, but her card is judgment because she was, it's like a contest where you're judged. This, you might not, I have to wait till you get to see, but if you can't tell, this was made, it's kind of blurry in the original photos, but this was made a Jaguar, because Jaguarina. This sash, there's no color in the black and white picture, so I had to come up with a color, and I thought, you know what, why not red, white, and blue? Because we've got an American swordswoman, yeah, America! But also, too, I wanted it to be kind of these red and vibrant blues, like you see in Hispanic kind of cultures where they have the, I don't know the name for the type of clothing, but like the sashes and the ponchos and that thing, like almost like if she was down south and she just happened to pick up a vibrant red and blue one. So I kind of wanted to honor her Hispanic, or I guess I should just say Spanish heritage, but also her American heritage, because she's, she's one of our few American swordswomen. Very cool. Dude, it's so interesting on the hair, because if you look up pictures, you can Google Ella Hatton. And I was curious because some of those pictures, I was like, people might be saying this is Ella Hatton, but it's not. But I was able to trace some of those photos to period newspaper articles. And, she has like curly light hair in one picture. Man, I wish that would. I'm sorry, guys, that it's not. I really wish you could see that unblurred. That's going to bug me. But you'll get to see it in person. In one picture, too, she has curly light hair. Another picture, she has like black, really, dark, straight hair. So that's one of those things where you kind of agonize and you're like, what do I do? Do I, which... So I just went off the reference of this photo, and I think because she was also an actress, by the way, she kept some interesting company. She was an actress, and her hair, she might have dyed different colors, styled it different ways. I mean, this was kind of getting to the era where people were doing that, and sometimes people's hair just changes, right? Have you ever known someone like they start off with like blonde or light brown hair, but then it darkens over time? Just sometimes people's hair changes. But yeah, she was with an acting troupe, like a vaudeville troupe, and she would give demonstrations. Eventually she taught, and she had her own like fencing school for women, so pretty cool. But she would give fencing demonstrations as part of the fee, and she would work with this troupe, this vaudeville troupe, and there was like a juggler who could balance on a bottle and like juggle upside down. There was, who else? There was like a singer. There was, this kind of just gang of people who were trying to make a living. And they, you can find her dressed up. Oh, dude, there were several awesome photos of her. There was one photo where she's dressed in almost like a kind of like circus-y type, outfit, and it's got like jaguar claws on the side and like a jaguar print and stuff, and I almost went with that one. That one was so awesome. But this is you can look up her actual cuirass, the brass cuirass. You can look up antique examples of that, and this was one of our few chances to kind of portray someone in like brass like armor, like you would see here in Shining. And dude, once you see this in person, you're gonna love it, because the artist really did a good job capturing like the light playing off of the armor and stuff. So I had to go with that, of course, and there's some wonderfully good pictures of her. Just be careful Googling. Look, I never want to be elitist gatekeeping jerk where I'm like, no, only I can like write about history or whatever. Dude, if little Timmy sketches with his crayon George Washington and the apple tree, or no, who was it? Was that? Yeah, that was, and he's like, brings it to me. He's like, look, I'm doing history. I want to be a historian. I'm gonna be like, dude, look at you, awesome. Okay, so who is it? Okay, this is George Washington. You want to encourage, you want to foster, you want to, the last thing I want to say is be a jerk and start going into textual criticism and all that stuff. But that being said, this is not, and this is just not to be mean to anyone at all. But the reality is, there will be people who get excited, who blog stuff online, and maybe they haven't had the training for like source criticism or whatever. So if you Google Ella Hatton, just know sometimes some of the stuff you might find posted online is every once in a while you find something not accurate. And that actually goes for a lot of these swordswomen. Some of these swordswomen don't even have their own Wikipedia page. I've mentioned that before. But sometimes you find them, and you find them on the kind of these sites where people are blogging and they're excited and they're like, oh yeah, this is awesome, girl power. And that's, it's fine to be excited about history, of course, but sometimes you read through, Tomo Agozen, Julia de Albany, all of these people, and you're kind of looking and, they'll claim something, and it's like, well, where are you getting that? What primary source? And sometimes when you just know what the primary sources are, you're like, that there's no way that happened, or like this is from a later novel or whatever. So have fun Googling, enjoy the awesome pictures, but take it all with a grain of salt. I would love to, oh my gosh, I would love to do a full-size book on all these people. There's enough about Ella Hatton to make a movie. She had rivals, she had, it was a very unusual circumstances because she had her own means of income, right? She had her own way of life. She traveled with interesting characters. You could do a whole scene in the movie where she's performing on stage in some sort of period opera house with her troupe. She had fights. She had, the training. And we don't even know what happened to her at the end. You could write some interesting story about, her disappearing. Because, we don't even know how her life ends. Where she ended up or how she died. Man, isn't history crazy? Okay, but you can read, and hopefully something that's accurate, in the book. Dude. That's just what my generation says, I guess, for being excited. I could not be happier with this. I ordered this. I finally got samples, right? I was scared. I was scared that this was going to be... Okay. I was scared that this was going to be, cheap. This was going to fall apart. That the print would be awful. Here, let me show you here. So cool. Title, Cards and Swords, Ravenswood Academy. All these names of the swordswomen, right? Hey girl, how's it going? My dog here. All the names of the swordswomen on the back. So there's different names. There's different names here on the front, and there's different names on the back here. And this cool vintage, this is from like an old magazine. It says like a fencing teacher, fencing professor. And then it actually, dude, it's actually great quality. Here's a spine. There we go. Oh, look at this. So the back has a page for notes. Very back. Let's see if I can find this. There we go. So if you want to scroll and do your own research on swordswomen, please do. Like I said, no gatekeeping or jerkish attitudes here. I want this to be a Googling point for someone. I want them to fire up the old search engine, and I want them to start Googling these names and these stories and everything. Your guides to the cards, beautiful. all the portraits and their stories, right? Hey girl, how you doing? Come here. Oh, I've got my faithful furry companion here. I guess you might as well see. Can you sit? Good girl. We got to put our best foot forward. Oh, Freya. Someone's doing well. Someone's sleepy. Someone just woke up. Freya is a big dog. Big and fluffy. She has been my faithful helper. Right. Okay, sorry about the setup. Like I said, it's not exactly ideal because I didn't have my tripod. All right, that's all. Go on. She'll actually go when you say go. Best well-behaved dog I've ever known. Very kind, too. Okay, all these awesome portraits. And their stories. So all this is the history. And then, right before the history section, I just had to put this graphic. When I was a kid, not to sound like an old man, but there was no Tic Tacs and YouTubes and everything to scroll through. When you were at home, yes, you had friends. Yes, you had playing outside. And yeah, I would maybe watch an hour of TV or something, but, you were just there. And I don't know, my doorway to another world was the library, which I would go to maybe about once a week. And thanks, Mom, for taking me to the library. Anyways, one time, and it was a downtown Fort Worth library, which is sadly closing. End of an era. But I would walk through the aisles, and of course, just knowing that there were all those books and all those ideas and all those things that could maybe tell you about a loss, it would be your window to another world, or tell you about how to solve a problem, whatever. It was very stimulating to my mind, and it was fascinating to think about all the stories locked away in that like a vault or something, like that huge pile of books. But walking through, my brother and I found Howard Pyle, Howard Pyle's King Arthur. And if you have another tab to open, if you're on a computer opening, watching this video, or even if you're on your phone, trust me, open a new tab, Google Howard Pyle's King Arthur illustrations. So beautiful, so well done, and a very interesting medium too. It was just ink pen, and paper. There was no color. My dog's coming back over because she thinks I'm talking to her or something. There was no color. This isn't, dude, Van Gogh is cool, Michelangelo is cool, all these people with all these different kind of styles. This is a unique style. And you're going to look and you're going to be able to see all of these portraits of these queenly women, these knights and kings. You can see these dudes jousting each other. Do you need to go outside? Sorry, I'm trying to take care of two things at once here. And let me go see if she needs to go out. Sorry. Bear with me here. You need to go? Here. Go outside. I apologize. Life gets in the way of our arts, but she's worth it. Freya's a good one. There's these two knights like colliding when they're jousting, and it's all ink and pen. There's a really wonderful illustration of it's zoomed out. It's two knights dueling. It's a tower. And there's like Merlin standing in the background, and it's all black and white. The stark black and white, there's something about that. And again, that's not even like my favorite style or anything, but how could it not grip you? Especially when you're a little kid and you're like, So it was 4 volumes. Howard Pyle's King Arthur is 4 huge volumes. And, you're leafing through it like you found hidden treasure. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like you found an old medieval book or something. And it's even written in like a pseudo, excuse me, it's like a pseudo, not Old English. I guess Old English, certainly not Middle English. I mean, well, I don't really know what to call it because it's not even, it's a Victorian guy trying to write in like 1600s English, but he's kind of making up some of the conventional stuff. Anyways, for certes thou doth jest. Nay, quoth she, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, one of those illustrations is, of course, Excalibur. This was in our Swordswoman playing cards deck. So cool. So iconic. Such a wonderful job by Howard Pyle. And in fact, I think he had several students who were women. I don't think they were swordswomen, but, he had some sort of school or organization or society. And had some romantic name, like the Broken Rose Society. I can't remember. It's been years and years since I read up on him, but stuff like this from my childhood and many other things too, like getting to do history or martial arts or music or whatever. Those are all the seeds of why this is happening, right? So anyways, just I guess a little personal nugget to share with you. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. The size, the quality, as far as like, I'm not going to go full on trying to do a destruction test, but it's really, really, really solid. This is my copy, so I don't want to be too rough on it, but this is something it's small enough to fit in your back pocket or purse or whatever, or backpack, definitely. And you get to go. So, excuse me, sorry. This is a pretty good sample. I'm really happy with this. And so, this should be exactly what you get when you order. I'll try and keep you guys posted as I go and everything. Sorry I went so long on this one. Excuse me, and forget my voice. Like I said, I'm still waking up here. But cheers to you, the backers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate letting this letting this project come to light through your funds. I know y'all are working hard to earn that money. So the fact that you would sling it our way and trust us to kind of bring these stories to life is so awesome. There's not going to be another product like this where you lay it out. Because some products, they have maybe more actual technical historical information, like a history textbook, but they're boring and there's so much extra info on there. But then other products, there's maybe they're more flashy or more bright and shiny, like a full-on video game or something, but it's it's like a fantasy thing and there's no actual historical substance to dive into. I don't have anything against historical textbooks or video games. Those are both awesome and fun, but something kind of in the middle where it is stylish, it's beautiful, it's elegant and flashy, but also every single person you can Google, you can go down a rabbit trail, you can do the historical research on, you can just get lost in their story. It's awesome. So thank you guys again, and I will keep you updated in the future. I need to go meet someone for coffee. That's it. If I think of anything else, I'll add it in the text. But thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.